How's everybody out there doing? This is Duane Fletcher with Fletcher Community Media. Doing a little quick podcast today. Some of you may know me by some of the books you see me out talking about uh, and promoting and things like that. This is some of my old stuff right here. We're gonna start with that first. Dance of the Mongoose talks about the weeks just before the coronavirus hit a couple of years ago. It's a really good book, action novel. Fox Hunt talks about uh, Chinese spies trying to take over the power company, and people in here in town trying to sell the power company so that they get kickbacks from these people. This is a really good book, also. Fox Hunt by Duane Fletcher wrote this 5 years ago. Just recently, somewhat came true where the character in the book was trapped in this warehouse and being held hostage, and the FBI and Homeland Security just recently had to raid this warehouse, approximately about this time last year. So again, like I said, I wrote this about 6 years ago, and it just seems like it's starting to come true. Fox Hunt by Duane Fletcher. Um, Code Name Lionfish talks about Chinese spy they had on the military base here in Jacksonville. This is a really good book. Guy was like selling equipment back and forth to China, selling top secret equipment. And here's some of the new stuff we got here. The Nibblenecks talks about some twins, a pair of these twin brothers, Russian hitmen that came to Jacksonville and caused all kind of mayhem. Uh, let's see, The Arrows, The Battle of Fletcher, The Arrows by Duane Fletcher. This one is like Raiders of the Lost Ark, except for the Russians are the bad guy in this one, and it's got all kind of uh uh like really good dialogue in here where because some of this stuff happened for real where uh the Russians tried to break into a military war museum in France because I guess they it's a alleged rumor that they thought that there was some kind of battle plan that Napoleon had that he used to beat them over and over again and stuff like that. But this is a real one. Basically it's Napoleon Bonaparte's campaign in Russia against the Russians, in contrast to what's going on today in Ukraine. Okay, so this is a really good book, also. Uh, let's see. And of course, this one right here, the one that's creating all of the controversy, The Black Hand. There's a part two coming out of this one real soon. This one talks about tennis pro that allegedly doubles as an assassin for the KGB. This is a really, really good one also. It's got a lot of really good stuff in it. I just wrote a part two that's going to be coming out very, very soon. Very, very soon. I'm done with it. Just got through editing it and I'm about to send it off to my publisher. And this one's a really good one also. The part two, you got to get your part two. If you like part one, if you like part one, you're definitely gonna like part two of this one. It's a it's a really good book. Okay, but I want to do a quick podcast today. So um, first thing I want to talk about has to do with some threats that I received. Okay, recently I received some threats, and this is some people that are apparently working with some dirty cops here, and they're making threats and stuff like that. It's I chalk it up to because it's because of something that I wrote. I would have, but they're trying to say that that's not it and that's not what they're doing. But I believe it is. You know what I'm saying? This is it's clearly stalking. Where I moved and this person moved close to me right after I moved from one part of town, they moved near me again, and then all of a sudden they're bumping into me and complaining that they just saw me. Hey, you wouldn't see me if you weren't following me around trying to bump into me and stuff like that. So, that's it's absurdity at its worst, and hopefully, I can transcend it and stuff like that. So, that being said, again, uh, let's go into the podcast. All right. One thing I want to talk about is the upcoming election. I normally don't talk about politics. I try not to because it's such a sordid mess what's going on with American politics right now. So, but one thing you have to know is that if you have relatives in Europe or other parts of the world and things like that, you have to pay attention to what's going on because I believe what's going to be done is going to happen in like a few phases. I want to go over that conspiracy theory right now. I want to go over that conspiracy theory right now. Okay, now let's look at this now. Okay, so let's say let's say hypothetically that Donald Trump is elected again. Okay, hypothetically, what's going to happen next? Okay, so what's going to happen next is that he's going to pull out of NATO. He's going to want to pull United States out of NATO, which basically leaves Europe to basically fight off the Russians by themselves. Um, I'm pretty sure they can do it, but still, there's the issue that why is he pulling out? Why does he want to pull out of NATO? I think it's because they got so many Russians here in Florida. They got a lot of those guys here in Florida and stuff like that. But they got oligarchs here that they're not in. I think there's three altogether, like two in Miami and one oligarch here in Ponte Vedra that they're not enforcing the sanctions and things like that. Um, but I think it's because he has Russian constituents. It's the same goes basically for Governor DeSantis, who's basically like Latino version of Donald Trump, but he's the governor. So, but first, the first thing he's going to do is pull out of NATO. There's another threat that he issued also saying that he was going to basically on day one get retribution for the people that basically has been standing in his way. I think he's got an ongoing issue with Dominion, the people who count the votes. Basically, it's a company called Dominion that makes a bunch of the voting machines and things like that. I think he got him and Giuliani have an ongoing issue with that. Um, Other people that he claims that he's upset with about the outcome of the election. Like first, it was Mrs. Willis in Georgia that was prosecuting him, and now just recently there's a new case that just popped up in Arizona. So Arizona's about to prosecute Trump also because of some of the lies that he told that have to do with the election and stuff like that. And so there's a new case up and coming up very, very soon in Arizona. I think they've all already began to unseal some of their federal documents where they have uh, charging him with obstruction of justice and some other things like that, fraud or and so, but it's going to be a very interesting case. And if you get the chance to check it out for yourselves, you don't have to take my word for it. But the first thing he said that he's going to do is like pull out of NATO and he's going to go after people that he thought was in his way and things like that. So you got to pay attention to this. Um, now, as far as Europe is concerned and the safety of the rest of the free world, uh, I believe that Poland is going to be first on his chopping block. Okay, where as basically Donald Trump is basically damage control for Russia when it comes to Poland. Um, I don't know if any of you have heard some of these stories before, but it's alleged that a lot of his buildings in New York and probably some of his resorts will build off something close to slave labor by construction workers that he had come to the United States from Poland. Okay. I think it was like 200 one time and then like another two or 300 another time. And he brought these guys in, and then there's all kind of documentary movies that have been filmed, like 60 minutes type stuff about how he didn't pay them and how he doesn't pay them fair wages. And, when it comes to stuff like that, basically what goes on is that they're afraid to say something because they get deported, they get sent back to Poland, they get sent back to Eastern Europe, and they don't want to go back to Eastern Europe for complaining. So some of them, I guess, what they do is they settle in, they find other jobs and other means of getting a fair wage and stuff like that. But I talked in the other podcast about the slave labor. Okay, like basically what happens to Germany if Russia takes over. Basically, Mercedes starts making tanks for the Russians. Adidas starts making boots for the Russians and things like that. There's no more normalcy. One of these other documentaries that I watched the other night had talked about the slow takeover of occupation of a foreign military on your homeland. And basically, at first, it would seem like everything's normal, but then all of a sudden, the occupying force hits you with a bunch of rules and stuff like that, where basically you're not allowed to own property, you have to work for the state, and so on and so forth. And Mercedes ends up making tanks for the Russians, and Adidas ends up making boots for the Russians, and Puma ends up making uniforms for the Russians. That's what basically goes on when these type of things happen. Now, again, like I said, nobody was doing any podcasting 600 years ago in Eastern Europe when all of this process started and things like that. But nowadays, you can map it out and see whether you want to be a party or something like that. I doubt very seriously if Mercedes wants to start making tanks for the Russians. I think they will. I think they like their way of life as it is right now. That they are able to make a luxury sports car and drive it themselves rather than convert the factory to make tanks for the Russians. They don't want to do that. But yet and still we still have naysayers. There's leaks coming out of Germany, all that kind of stuff. There's still stuff going on that makes you think, are they even know what the future holds as far as something like that goes? Because there's been leaks coming out of Germany about the bridge that was to be destroyed in Russia, and then the leak possibly caused the bridge collapse over here in America, and things like that. And hopefully they can get a hold of it. But what I heard recently is that Germany is going after Russia right now because of the hacking that goes on over in Germany. So hopefully they can get to the bottom of that. Um, but the first thing he's going to do if Trump is elected is pull out of NATO. Okay, and then he's going to go after the different people in America that he thought was after him, and trying to keep him from being president again and things like that. Uh, to me personally, I think it's a delusion because I'm privy to some other information that had to do with the warehouses here in Jacksonville that housed the voting machines. There was some issues about that building. Um, being infiltrated repeatedly every time something was wrong with the voting machines. They said, well, you let Tom, Dick, and Harry rent warehouse space in that warehouse. And, how can you expect to have a secure vote if Tom, Dick, and Harry is renting warehouse space in the same building that you are housing your voting machines and things like that? So, um, but the first thing Russia's going to do once he pulls out of NATO is they're going to try to invade Poland. This is a ongoing issue that a lot of people are actually thinking about. Some people are biting their nails. I know, like people in Europe, which is basically Eastern Europe, is basically the front line ground zero for such an assault. But the first thing Russia's probably going to do is invade Poland because Donald Trump is the damage control for a Russian invasion of Poland because he has lorded over the Polish people in a great way for many, many, many years over many, many, many construction projects that he mistreated some of the Polish construction workers, didn't pay them a fair wage. And you don't have to take my word for it. There's tons of this stuff on the internet. You can look it up for yourself. But not to mention the fact that Donald Trump's in-laws, his not his in-laws, but his daughter's in-laws, the Kushner family, they are of Polish descent, and basically they I believe, if I'm not mistaken, uh, Kushner's Kushner's grandfather is like a war hero in Russia. and Poland from World War II days, from back in the World War II, where they just openly defied the Germans and fought for their lives and escaped from Poland into Belarus and then into Russia. And I've seen a couple of documentaries about it, and it kind of sparked my interest. So what I did was I watched a movie about it too. It's a really good material about what went on, what happened. But I think Kushner's family is Polish, and they basically are war heroes. They're war heroes. I think it's his grandfather. He's like a war hero in Russia for fighting the Nazis and stuff like that. So um, this is Russia's damage control. It's Trump and his daughter's in-laws. The Kushner family and the Trump family are the damage control for a Russian invasion. Now, um, some people might say that's not what it is, but or that's not what's going to happen. Mercedes, no white slavery is ridiculous in this day and age. But Trump has already done it in Poland. And the perfect example of it is the argument about the him not paying the Polish workers that he imported from Poland to help build some of his construction projects in Manhattan and apparently possibly Miami also. So but we have to pay attention to this stuff, and that's probably what their goal is, to get something like that done. So, and it's like saying that white slavery was wrong when the Muslims and the Moors did it, what, 10,000 years ago, but it's okay if Russia does it now in Europe, or stuff like that. That's absurd. No type of slavery is good at all, whether it's a black person or a white person. So me personally, I'm hoping that Biden will win again, um because he basically is already formatted for dealing diplomatically with world problems, not just America's problems, but global problems, and not trying to basically be a part of the problem with the Russians and stuff like that. Which basically, where are we going with this with Trump? Where are we going with this? That's what's going on. That basically he's going to end up being Russia's damage control for a Polish invasion or something like that. So, um, hopefully, they won't even elect Trump. It's absurd to even let this guy anywhere near the White House after that January 6th riot. I wouldn't let him anywhere near the White House at all, because that was a big ass lie that they was telling, talking about somebody stole. This I'm from the South. I'm from Florida, and basically, if you would have seen what was going on in the streets and what people were talking about, would make you want to put Trump in jail for telling a big ass lie like that about January 6th. Hey, Bubba, somebody stole the election, Bubba. Come on, let's get him, Jethro. Come on, Jethro, let's get him. Somebody stole the election. Come on, man. And this is the same posture that uh, prejudiced uh, white people have had about lynching black people and things like that, and then Rosewood was one of the places here in Florida where a massacre like that happened, and where somebody did something. Come on, let's get them, Jethro, let's get them, Bubba. And this is the mentality basically that led them to riot at. You know, he told them somebody stole the election. They took his word for it. So it's come to be proven that that's not what happened. Um, if there was somebody tampering with it, it might have possibly been somebody Russian that was doing it for Trump, and maybe he was discovered, and then Trump lost the second time ran for president or something like that. So, um, hopefully, they'll throw the book at it. Where they're like, no, no, dude. I wouldn't, me personally, I wouldn't vote for him. I wouldn't let him, because he's going to tear the country apart with some of the lies that he tells and stuff like that. So, um, now, okay, so, and this is another thing that's kind of disturbing, that this is another thing that's kind of disturbing that I think they're saying that Kushner's in Serbia now. So Kushner's in Serbia now. His daughter's husband, he's in Serbia now trying to do some kind of construction project, possibly recruiting some Serbians for some type of construction project, some kind of special construction project. And being a conspiracy theorist, it's almost like you could see them coming from a mile away. That basically this is going to end up with some type of sleeper, possibly that they snuck into the country or something like that. And he's got all these other designs other than building a damn building. And, he's got all these other designs other than plumbing or electrical work. Basically, he's got an agenda for the Russians or stuff like that. This is how this kind of stuff gets started. And I'm like, it's weird that he wants to go recruit some Serbian construction workers all of a sudden. But it is what it is. So hey, like I said, you can look some of this stuff up for yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. But it's almost like somebody's trying to sell the Brooklyn Bridge over and over again. Like let's see, you remember long time, maybe like 200 years ago, they were saying that there was this guy. It was like 100 years, like 100 years ago, there used to be this guy that used to hang around at the base of the Brooklyn Bridge in New York, and like rich foreign people that he would bump into, he would sell them the bridge, and it's not his bridge. Yeah, come on, yeah, you can buy the Brooklyn Bridge, and he gets his money, but it's absurd. They can't own the bridge. What are they going to do with it again? Put up toll booth or deny people to go back and forth over it and things like that. Um, but the thing is that this is like somebody's trying to sell the Brooklyn Bridge over and over. First, it was DeSantis and the Serbian tennis player. Oh man, I want to smuggle that guy in from the Caribbean, and he had designs on basically trying to bring them here to give them carte blanche, which ended up in disaster in New York, where everybody got sick. Everybody at the tennis match got sick, and the Serbian guy won, which is crazy. Um, and but now it's Kushner. Kushner's in Serbia recruiting, so there's going to be probably now it's Kushner. Hey, I want to smuggle that guy in from the Caribbean or whatever's going on with him. So but it's weird. But speaking of Governor DeSantis, um, I want to bring up another issue. Apparently, the United States Air Force has requested that Governor DeSantis turn over his Florida Air National Guard. Well, we call them FANG, FANG, FANG. Uh, Florida Air National Guard, certain assets be turned over to the Air Force so that they can be reassigned to Space Force. Um, Now, the thing is that Governor DeSantis, he's raising hell about this. He doesn't want, no, 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 don't do that. And I think it's possibly because he's, might be cooking up some misdirection here and there because he's got him doing so much different things. I don't trust Governor DeSantis, but he is my governor. I have to respect the office of governor, but I don't trust some of the things he says after the incident with the Serbian guy at all. Um, but now he's complaining. Governor DeSantis is crying foul that he doesn't want his Florida Air National Guard reassigned to Space Force, and this is the Air Force decision to request it, and they've made a formal request, and he's bucking it. He's trying to buck it, where he wants to keep them here in Florida, and I'm pretty sure I know why because his budget was just increased from $7 million a year for the Florida Air National Guard to $100 million a year. So, and he's bought them new attack choppers and attack speedboats for the coast for their branch that works for the Coast Guard and stuff like that. And and he wants them to carry guns. So eventually, sooner or later he's gonna be end up buying guns for them also to carry, just like regular troops and stuff like that. And but there's been so many problems with his refurbishment of the Florida Air National Guard, excuse me, the whole entire thing, not just the Florida Air National Guard, but the Florida National Guard, period. It's just been so much controversy. I don't know if y'all was paying attention to that, but at one point in time, it was like he took over the military bases here, like that movie Taps. Like right after the election, and somebody said that somebody stole the election. It was like he took over the military base, and and he doesn't want to lose control of how he's rearranged things to, for his, he's a military guy. He knows what he's doing. He's a military guy and knows what he's doing, and he's rearranged the military stuff that has to do with the National Guard, for certain reasons and stuff like that. And then, but there's been so many complaints that to me is kind of suspect, because there was uh, certain people that volunteered for it that said that he has basically hijacked the National Guard platform for his own personal reasons. Whereas, he wants them to carry weapons now. It's not a volunteer thing now. Now he wants them to act like regular soldiers and carry weapons. Um, and then there was one veteran that was in a wheelchair. It was a disabled veteran in a wheelchair. He signed up to be a part of the new National Guard, and he wanted to be a part of it. And they were saying that the guy was kidnapped. He was kidnapped, and they threw a bag over his head and threw him in a van, and then they beat him up, and then they dropped him off at the military base or something like that. And but there's been a lot of complaints like that, so, it's kind of weird. Then they were saying allegedly, and I don't know if this is true, but one of the commanders shot himself or something like that too, which is really, really weird. Um, and but the Air Force wants this from Florida now, and he's complaining, complaining, complaining. And the thing is that basically, the way they look at it is like, you send troops to, because one of the complaints is that, well, these people are weekend warriors. Some of them are weekend warriors, what they call weekend warriors. National Guard stuff is like weekend, where you just report to the military base on the weekend to do your duty. And that, if they are redeployed to Space Force, that it'll take them away from home, away from their home in Florida and things like that. But hear him complaining when he sends them to Texas. He just sent troops to Texas, National Guard troops to Texas, like one, two times, 2 or 3 times over the last couple of years. He sent National Guard troops to Texas, and they have to stay there and help guard the border. And but because of the insufficiencies in Texas National Guardsmen, and they have to fill in the gaps and stuff like that. Though he doesn't say anything about that. Yeah, that's a tech play. The border in Texas, like what, like 1,000 miles away from here, but he has no problem sending Florida National Guardsmen to Texas, um, to away from home to live there to guard the border. But now he doesn't want his Florida Air National Guard units to be deployed to Space Force. And not only that, but from one of the other parts of the story says that some of the National Guardsmen here in Florida have been filling in at the prisons. They're basically where a lot of our prisons here are running low on correctional officers. So they have asked the National Guard to step in, and to do that, some of them have to drive 200-300 miles away from home and spend the weekend at this place, and at a federal prison in Florida, and then drive 200-300 miles back home. So this process is not far from what he's already doing, I'd like to say. And but he still has a problem with it. And now, me, of course, I have a thousand different conspiracy theories as to why he doesn't want him there. Like maybe, see, and the reason why I said it, man, it's possible And I want to caution the Air Force, first and foremost, I want to caution the Air Force that if you do end up with some of the Florida Air National Guard people, be careful that DeSantis does not send you any spies. Because as it is right now, Florida has been plagued with spies at the military base. They just caught a guy not too long ago, where this guy and his wife, the guy was in the Navy for like 17 years. Then one day he got a phone call from China and a check for $200,000, and he started selling top secret equipment to China. And this was like stuff that he was supposed to be teaching, like the Navy SEALs how to use, and stuff that he was supposed to be teaching his recon, the Navy recon units how to use, Marine Corps recon. He's supposed to be teaching them how to use all this top secret equipment. But one day, he got a check for $200,000 and a phone call from China, and he started selling the equipment. So that's that book right there. Then, of course, they have been let into for the power company assets that control all of the power in Florida. Yes, and it's not just me saying this. Like I said, they had just recently had to raid the warehouse that I was talking about in this book. So they've let some spies in here and there, a couple of different times here in Florida. So whatever you assets that you get from uh DeSantis, you need to vet them probably again to make sure he ain't sneak in no Chinese spies by accident, or maybe he didn't sneak in no Russian hitmen by accident. Oops. Or maybe he didn't sneak in those Serbian guys by accident. Oops. So that's why I say that the Air Force needs to, whatever you get from DeSantis in Florida, put it under a microscope for the safety, for our own safety, for the safety of the country, for the safety of the military. Whatever you get from DeSantis, put it under the microscope so that he doesn't slip a spy past you by accident, or on purpose, or however, however this stuff just keeps happening. However, this stuff just keeps happening. You know, it's a lot of oops. Oops, say somebody should be fired if there's that much. If somebody don't know what they're doing, or they're doing it on purpose. So, um, so the Air Force definitely, whatever assets you get from DeSantis, military assets, vet it, vet it, vet it. Especially if it has to do with Space Force, because just about all of this stuff is going to be top secret. So you want to double vet, make sure that he doesn't send you any gremlins by accident. Um, so, uh, what else I want to say? Oh, that's all I had to say today. Okay, all right. So if you get a chance to check out my books, The Nibble Next talks about Russian hitmen, twin brother Russian hitmen that came to town and started all kind of foolishness. All right, and of course there is this one right here, The Arrows, the Battle of Flechet, the Arrows. It's called the Battle of Flechet because when the French soldiers arrived in Russia, the Russians had dug these like three trenches, and the trenches were shaped like arrows. So the French forces called it the Flechet, and they took it from the Russians and beat them backwards all the way to Moscow. Russians had to retreat east of Moscow. Napoleon walked into Moscow without firing a shot. This is a really good book right here. It goes over those old Napoleon battle plans, along with in contrast to what's going on in Ukraine today. It's kind of like Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they're looking for relics and things like that. It's a really good book. And of course, the one that's causing all the controversy, the Black Hand. Uh, Tennis pro allegedly doubles as an assassin for the KGB. This is a really good book, also, The Black Hand. Um, and there's a part two coming out really soon, really, really soon. Just got through writing it, just got through editing it, and I'm about to send it off to my publisher. It'll be on sale on my website, blurb.com. You can find all of these books on blurb.com. See if we got a blurb. Okay. Well, you can find all of the books on blurb.com. Let me show you what that looks like. Let me see if I can show you what the website looks like. Duane Fletcher, blurb.com. There you go. But that's the website. Blurb, BLURB, blurb.com, and you can pull it up and you can see it's on sale and there's a part two coming out. And then, of course, down here at the bottom, I have other books like this one right here, The Arrows, Lionfish, that's the website right there. Blurb.com, BLURB, author Duane Fletcher, blurb.com. If you get a chance to check it out, I got some really, really good material. And if you get a chance to, let me know. Um, Also, I wanted to bring up again, I'm gonna say this because I got you guys right here. But a while ago, I filmed this documentary movie, okay? And it's talked about 9/11 and stuff like that. And in contrast, because President Bush was here in Jacksonville, right across the street from where I'm filming right there. This is over near JU, Jacksonville University. But President Bush was here on Justina Road the morning that 9/11 occurred. And 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 I filmed a documentary movie that talked about some of it, but I remember a while ago there were like a group of bootleggers that bootlegged the movie and they dressed up like me. They were out asking for money and things like that, donations and stuff. And they were caught. First, it started with a couple of people that came back to me and told me that there was somebody in a separate parking lot down the street from the strip mall where I was. They were in another strip mall down the street from the strip mall I was in selling the movie, and that the person was dressed up like me and asking for money and stuff. First, it started with a couple of people coming back to me telling me that stuff like that. Then, I believe one of the city councilmen here in town got involved, and I think he called the FBI, and the FBI arrested the bootleggers. And now, if that happens again, please, I'm asking the general public here, come back and let me know. Please come back and let me know because I can guarantee you that the person that's pretending to be me is probably out to do you some harm. We're not just talking about regular things. At this moment, though this person would probably be the equivalent of like a spy trying to set himself up as a hero, with some really painstaking research that I had to do and some stuff like that. So if you run into these people again, please someone give me a call or notify me and let me know what's going on. Uh, uh, you can reach me at fletchcommed at yahoo.com. FLETCHCOMMED at yahoo.com. That's Fletcher Community Media at yahoo.com. Fletchcommed. Okay. And that's all I had to say today. And y'all have a nice evening. Thank you.